Hello, I'm often asked which was the most difficult book to write, and there is no doubt about it in my mind. It was The Spook's Curse. I was born in Preston, I lived in Preston, and this book is set in Preston. And why was it difficult to write? Well, because I was still a full-time teacher. When my editor asked me to make a change, I could do it. I'd make that change to chapter 2 maybe, and then I'd find out I had a lot of other changes to make to chapter 14 and 15 and 16. I needed to hold the whole book in my head. It was very difficult. I needed to concentrate. And teaching is a hard job. We do a lot of preparation and it takes time away. There's no time to actually really do justice to a book if you're a teacher. And therefore, I struggled. It was really hard. But of course, by the time I got to the third book, I was a full-time writer. And by then, life became easier again. The enemy that the Spook and Tom face is called the Bane, and it's bound below Priesttown Cathedral behind a silver gate. That's Priesttown Cathedral, based upon St Walburg's Church in Preston. It's also a shapeshifter and can take on many different shapes. Dog, like a gargoyle over the front of the church. That's the Bane. One of its tricks is to actually exert a great weight on anyone who steps into his territory. It smears them into the cobbles. In the Spook's Curse, the Bane isn't the only enemy. This is the other thing that the Spook and apprentice have to face. Priesttown, built on the banks of the River Ribble, was the biggest town that I ever visited. As we came down the hill, the river was like a huge snake, gleaming orange in the light from the setting sun. It was a town of churches, with spires and towers rising above the rows of small terrace houses. Set right on the summit of a hill, near the centre of the town, was the cathedral. 3 of the largest churches I'd seen in my whole life would have easily fitted inside it. And its steeple was something else. Built from limestone, it was almost white, and so high that I guessed that on a rainy day, the cross at the top would be hidden by clouds. Is that the biggest steeple in the world? I asked, pointing in excitement. No, lad, the Spook answered with a rare grin. But it's the biggest steeple in the county, as it might well be with a town that boasts so many priests. I only wish there were fewer of them. We'll just have to take a chance. Suddenly, the grin faded from his face. Talk of the devil, he said, clenching his teeth before pulling me through a gap in the hedge into the adjoining field. There he placed his forefinger against his lips for silence, and he made me crouch down with him while we listened to the sound of approaching footsteps. It was a good, thick hawthorn hedge, and it still had most of its leaves, but through it I could just make out a black cassock above the boots. It was a priest. We stayed there for quite a while, even after the footsteps had faded into the distance. Only then did the Spook lead us back onto the path. I couldn't work out what all the fuss was about. On our travels we passed lots of priests. They hadn't been too friendly, but we never tried to hide before. We need to be on our guard, lad, the Spook explained. Priests are always trouble, but they represent a real danger in this town. You see, Priesttown's bishop is the uncle of the High Inquisitor. No doubt you'll have heard of him. I nodded. He hunts witches, doesn't he? Aye, lad, he does that. When he catches someone he considers to be a witch or a warlock, he puts on his black cap and becomes a judge at the trial. A trial that's usually over very quickly. The following day, he puts on a different hat. He becomes the executioner and organises the burning. He's a reputation for being good at that, and a big crowd usually gathers to watch. They say he positions the stake carefully so that the poor wretch takes a very long time to die. The pain is supposed to make a witch sorry for what she's done, so she'll beg God's forgiveness. And as she dies, her soul will be saved. But that's just an excuse. The Inquisitor lacks the knowledge of a spook, and he wouldn't know a real witch if she reached up from her grave and grabbed his ankle. No, he's just a cruel man who likes to inflict pain. He enjoys his work, and he's grown rich from the money he makes selling the homes and the property of those he condemns. So you see, the Spook and Tom Ward have to face the Bane, the creature in the labyrinth under Priesttown Cathedral, and they're also in danger from the Inquisitor.